The Galactic Council had existed for thousands of years, a union of the most powerful and intelligent species across the known galaxy. They believed in peace, control, and the balance of power. Every new species was carefully observed, studied, and classified. Some were allowed to join, others were ignored, and a few were quietly removed if seen as a threat. Earth was first discovered by the Council over 2 centuries ago, during the early stages of humanity's space exploration. Back then, humans were seen as violent, emotional, and unpredictable, a young species with dangerous potential. Still, the Council did nothing at first, assuming that, like many others before them, humans would burn out or destroy themselves. But humans did not burn out. They adapted, expanded, and advanced at an alarming rate. In less than 100 years, they had built colonies on Mars, terraformed parts of Europa, and created trade routes to the asteroid belt. What terrified the Council most was not their technology, but their spirit. No matter the setback, humans kept pushing forward. No matter the loss, they rebuilt. And when divided, they still found ways to unite against a greater threat. The Council called emergency meetings, reviewed human history, and found it full of wars, revolutions, and survival against impossible odds. Earth was not becoming a threat. It already was one. The final decision came quietly, behind closed doors, without warning. A secret operation was approved. The Council would strike first, remove Earth's potential to challenge them before it became too late. They called it a containment act. Not a war. Not a genocide. Just a necessary correction in the timeline of galactic order. Within days, massive Council fleets emerged from hyperspace near the outer edges of the solar system. Earth's satellites were disabled before any warning could be sent. Moon bases were bombarded with kinetic strikes, turning them into dust. The colonies on Mars tried to fight back, but stood no chance against advanced Council technology. Europa's settlements were simply erased by an atmospheric disruption wave, and billions of lives were lost before anyone truly understood what was happening. On Earth, chaos broke out. Communication blackouts, worldwide panic, and finally, the unimaginable, a global EMP that shut down every major system. Cities went dark. Power grids failed. Emergency broadcasts were silenced. And then, silence. The Council scanned the planet from orbit. They expected retaliation, resistance, perhaps even desperate messages pleading for mercy. But there was nothing. Earth was quiet. No signals, no fleets, no messages. It was as if the planet had accepted defeat, broken by the overwhelming force of the Council's will. The operation was marked as successful. Reports were filed. Ships returned to their regions. Council members celebrated a swift end to a potential threat. It was for the good of the galaxy, they told themselves. They would have done the same if they were in our place, they said. And as the Council moved on with their regular business, they didn't notice the one thing that had changed forever, the look in the eyes of the surviving humans. What the Council didn't realize was that the silence was not surrender. It was a decision. The remaining human leaders, hidden in bunkers deep beneath Earth's crust, had come to a single, terrifying agreement. There would be no message, no plea, no open war. Instead, there would be planning, rebuilding, and waiting. They called it the Quiet Rebirth. Underground cities were constructed. Resources were rerouted. Every piece of remaining technology was hidden, repurposed, or weaponized. Survivors from Mars and Europa, those few who had escaped the slaughter, were secretly brought back. Scientists who once worked on peaceful exploration were now put to work designing tools of war. And children born in the aftermath were raised with one message in their hearts: never forget. The Council had made a mistake, not because they attacked Earth, but because they didn't finish the job. They assumed humanity could be broken by force, that they would disappear like so many before. But they didn't know what humans became when pushed to the edge. They didn't understand the power of grief turned into focus, or rage turned into unity. They didn't realize that Earth's silence was not the end, but the beginning. Years passed. The Council turned their attention elsewhere. They never thought to watch Earth again. Why would they? From their view, Earth was crippled, powerless, and isolated. The humans had vanished, and the threat was gone. Or so they believed. But something was happening beneath the surface. Humanity was changing. Not just their technology, but their minds, their culture, their purpose. For the first time in history, all of Earth's people had one goal: revenge. It wasn't loud. It wasn't wild. It was cold, calculated, and precise. They didn't want to make the same mistake the Council did. They wouldn't strike out of anger. They would wait for the right moment when no one would expect it, when the Council was distracted and unprepared. And then they would show the galaxy what Earth had become. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, no one mentioned Earth anymore. The name had become a footnote in old security logs, a silent reminder of a quick operation that had gone smoothly. The younger species in the Council never even learned about the event. It was buried deep in classified archives. Some senior members still had doubts, uneasy thoughts they kept to themselves, small questions like why did Earth never respond? Or what if we were wrong? But those thoughts were pushed away by routine meetings, political games, and distant wars that seemed more urgent. The Council had made its decision. And like all great empires before them, they believed they were too powerful to fall. Far away, on a darkened Earth, a human scientist adjusted the final piece of a weapon that didn't exist on any alien database. A fleet of black ships hovered silently beneath the oceans, powered by cores made from stolen Council tech and new materials never seen before. Children born after the strike were now pilots, engineers, strategists. And they carried the weight of lost families, burned cities, and shattered futures in their blood. A countdown had begun not in hours or days, but in silence. And when the time came, the galaxy would finally hear from Earth again. But it would not be a message of peace. It would be something else. Something the Council was not prepared to face. For they had made one mistake. They believed humans were weak because they cared. But they never understood what it truly meant when a human whispered the words, "We remember." After the brutal attack by the Galactic Council, Earth was thought to be lost. Billions were killed, colonies destroyed, and the heart of humanity crushed under the silence that followed. But deep below the surface of the ruined world, something was happening that no one outside Earth could see. The survivors, those few who had managed to escape death, did not come out crying or calling for help. Instead, they vanished. They disappeared into underground cities, hidden bunkers, and secret chambers designed not just for survival but for transformation. The surface was left in ruins on purpose, covered in ash and dust, looking like a graveyard to any outsider scanning from orbit. That was the plan. Earth wanted the Council to believe that humanity had been wiped out, that their attack was successful, and that there was no threat left. And so, the Council moved on, watching other parts of the galaxy, never realizing that their enemy was still breathing quietly, patiently, and with purpose. The survivors were not many, but they were enough. Engineers, scientists, soldiers, children, and old leaders came together like never before. No country, race, or religion mattered now. Those things had died with the world above. What remained was one shared identity: human. The bunkers were more than shelters. They were laboratories, academies, training centers, and weapon factories. Beneath the mountains, under the oceans, and inside the Earth's crust, humanity began to change. They studied the technology that had attacked them, reverse-engineered pieces of Council ships that crashed during the assault, and started building new machines designed not for defense, but for one thing: revenge. But they knew it would take time. Years, maybe decades. So they vanished completely. No signals. No movement in space. No ships leaving the atmosphere. They made sure even their moon stations appeared cold and abandoned. It was all part of the act. Children who had seen their parents die now learned about the enemy's language, battle tactics, and weak points. They trained in zero-gravity chambers, learned to survive without light or food, and studied every failure from Earth's past. Every person had a role, and every role was critical. No one was forgotten. In these dark cities, there were no luxuries, no comforts, only hard work and silent rage. Scientists once working for peaceful space exploration now designed cloaking tech that could hide ships from Council sensors. Doctors who once cured diseases now study. The Council never noticed that their sensors sometimes picked up strange shadows in deep space, or that some of their patrol ships disappeared without a trace. If they had looked closer, they would have found wreckage drifting silently, laser cuts precise, with no survivors left to report what had happened. But the galaxy was full of dangers, and the Council blamed pirates or natural disasters. They never suspected Earth because they thought Earth was gone. That was the mistake. The greatest weapon humans had now was not their strength, nor their machines. It was the belief that they were dead. It was the power of being forgotten. The survivors had vanished not because they were afraid, but because they were preparing to return stronger than ever. One Council scout, a young officer from the XLR species, once questioned the silence. He had studied the reports, watched the destruction, and something didn't feel right. He noticed that the EMP waves sent to Earth didn't destroy as much as expected. Some satellites had been taken out, yes, but others simply went dark, no explosions, no debris. He raised his concerns in a council meeting, but the elders laughed. The humans are gone, they told him. Even if some survived, they pose no threat. But the officer remained uneasy. He requested permission to lead a stealth mission to Earth's orbit to scan for hidden signs of life. It was denied. The Council didn't want to waste resources chasing ghosts. The decision sealed their fate. Meanwhile, Earth's new leaders, called the Hidden Command, watched everything. They knew the Council would grow lazy, overconfident, and blind to small signs. They used that arrogance. Small human drones, no larger than insects, were sent across the galaxy, landing silently on Council planets, hiding in shadows, gathering data. No one ever saw them. No one even knew they were there. They recorded military bases, supply chains, ship designs, and even council meetings. Slowly, Earth was building a map, not of stars, but of targets. Every member of the Hidden Command had lost someone in the attack. Every night, they sat in silence, staring at the pictures of their families, and reminded themselves why they were doing this. Their pain didn't break them, it turned them into something new. Years passed. Human children became adults, trained for war before they could even read properly. Soldiers were not just armed, they were prepared to die. They didn't fear pain. They didn't fear death. All they feared was failing the mission. And so, they remained in the dark, sharpening their minds and tools like silent blades. The Council had no idea that Earth's survivors had not just lived, they had vanished, only to become ghosts, preparing to return as monsters. And far above, hidden in the void between star systems, the first human stealth fleet waited. Black ships, shaped like knives, drifting quietly, powered by engines that left no trace. The captains gave no speeches. They needed none. Every pilot knew their purpose. The countdown was still going. The galaxy was still watching the wrong direction. And the survivors, the forgotten children of Earth, were no longer running. They were waiting for the moment to strike. The galaxy had grown quiet, at least in the eyes of the Galactic Council. They believed the threat of Earth had been buried in its own ashes, erased by the massive orbital attack that turned cities to craters and oceans to steam. For years, the Council focused on other things: internal politics, trade deals, expanding colonies, and silencing smaller rebellions in far-off star systems. Earth was nothing more than a forgotten page in their history books, a warning of what happened to those who dared to challenge the Council's rule. But in the cold darkness, beyond the sensors of their warships, behind the silence of dead satellites, something was waiting. Humanity hadn't perished. It had vanished and transformed. And now, without any official declaration, without a single warning, Earth was ready to strike back. It started without sound, without light. In a distant sector of Council-controlled space, where patrols were fewer and security was lax, a supply station orbited a barren moon. It was a refueling point, nothing special, run by machines and a handful of crew, just another quiet outpost, keeping the Council's vast empire running. But that night, the moon's shadow shifted. No alarms went off. No systems detected the incoming vessels. The human stealth ships, blacker than the vacuum they sailed through, moved like ghosts. They did not approach from the usual paths. They had mapped the station's blind spots down to the second. When the lights in the station flickered once, a glitch no one noticed, it was already too late. The first ship docked silently. Human soldiers, wearing armor that bent light and absorbed heat, entered without a sound. They didn't fire their weapons right away. They walked through the halls like whispers, disabling systems, locking doors, cutting off communications. Then the strike began. The Council crew didn't even get a chance to scream. The humans moved with precision, not anger. Every step was planned, every action trained 1,000 times in simulations back on Earth. Within minutes, the entire station was under human control. Not a single shot was heard outside. The station's beacons still blinked normally. The external sensors still showed calm. And yet, everyone inside was either captured or gone. The human commander aboard the lead ship sent a single message back to Earth. First target neutralized. No detection. Awaiting next orders. That was the beginning. Over the next 30 days, similar strikes happened across the galaxy. Council listening posts, weapons depots, and communication satellites began going dark one after another. Each time, no signals of attack were recorded. No ships were seen. The Council believed it was a system failure, a virus, maybe even cosmic interference. They sent investigation teams, but most of them never returned. When a few ships finally discovered the ruins of a destroyed weapons facility completely burned from the inside, with all data wiped, they started to suspect something worse. But by then, panic had started to rise. Council meetings turned chaotic. Some members shouted for more security. Others refused to believe Earth was responsible. "It's impossible," they said. "That planet is dead." But not everyone was blind. The same auxiliary officer who once questioned the silence of Earth now stood in front of the High Council again, this time with evidence. He showed data patterns, tactical analysis, the timeline of missing assets, and most terrifying of all, a grainy image recovered from a destroyed outpost, showing a blurry human figure walking through smoke. The council chamber fell silent. The truth, the one they had buried and ignored, had returned. Humanity was alive. And worse, they were organized. But they had no idea how far it had gone. On a secret asteroid base, human engineers had built something terrifying, a weapon known only as Hammerfall. It was not a bomb or a gun. It was a hijacked Council warship, rebuilt using Earth's new technology. It had no crew, only AI guidance and a mission. And on the day Earth chose to make its presence known, they unleashed Hammerfall on the Council's most secure location, the communication nexus, on the planet Teleron. The attack wasn't just a message, it was a declaration. The nexus was the heart of Council operations. Every signal, order, and alert passed through it. It was surrounded by defense rings, guarded by elite troops, and protected by planetary shields. No one had ever breached it. And yet, as Council officers sipped their drinks in the safety of the command tower, the skies above them split open. Hammerfall emerged from the void, its black surface reflecting no stars. It did not fire at first. It simply dropped like a blade from the heavens. It tore through the outer defenses, ignoring minor damage, and crashed directly into the nexus. The explosion that followed was not bright. It was deep, focused, and surgical. The nexus didn't explode, it vanished, crushed from the inside, collapsed by a gravity bomb unlike anything seen before. Within seconds, the entire communication grid of the Council failed. Lights went out. Screens turned black. Signals were lost. For the first time in galactic history, the Council had gone completely blind. That's when the human voice echoed across the galaxy. It was not angry, not loud, but clear. Every emergency channel, every open frequency was hijacked. The message was simple, we remember. And now it's your turn. Then silence returned. But it wasn't like before. This time, it was heavy, full of fear. The Council tried to recover. They sent ships to every location. They activated emergency protocols. But everywhere they turned, they found nothing but wreckage and silence. Earth wasn't fighting a war, they were delivering a message. They were proving that the Council, with all its strength and pride, could bleed. And the most terrifying thing was not the damage, it was the precision. Humans were not destroying everything. They were choosing targets carefully. Important places. Places that hurt the most. It meant they knew the Council well. It meant they had spies. It meant they were inside. Back on Earth, deep underground, the hidden command watched the reactions. They had expected panic, but what they saw was fear. The kind of fear that cracks empires. Their plan had worked. The first strike had shaken the unshakable. And this was only the beginning. More fleets were ready. More targets had been marked. The Council had tried to erase Earth from existence. Now, Earth was rewriting the rules. Not with speeches or treaties, but with actions, shadows, and the cold fire of revenge. The galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Council sat in silence, their once glorious chamber now dimly lit by emergency lights and flickering holograms. No messages came in. No orders went out. The entire communication grid was still down, crippled by the brutal hammerfall strike launched by the humans. Fear had taken hold in the hearts of the mighty. The Council, which once boasted of its unbreakable rule over hundreds of species, was now hiding behind broken systems and false hope. Every attempt to locate the human base failed. Their fleets vanished into the void before Council ships could arrive. It was as if Earth had become a ghost everywhere, yet nowhere. But there was one truth the Council could no longer avoid. They had made a mistake too big, too brutal, and now far too late to erase. Among the chaos, an old Exilari historian named Velkar, long ignored and buried in dusty archives, was called upon by the desperate. He had studied Earth before the war, learned its cultures, its ways, and its strange history. Now, he stood in the center of the Council chamber, facing leaders who had once mocked his warnings. He began his story with a single sentence that made the room colder. You were wrong about the humans not just in your actions, but in your understanding of them. The Council members looked at each other, silent and tense. Velkor opened a sealed archive from decades ago, files they had once dismissed as irrelevant. Inside were logs from spies, intercepted transmissions, and ancient footage from Earth before it was attacked. But the most shocking part was not the data, it was the emotion hidden in those files. Footage showed humans caring for their wounded, fighting for their families, and refusing to surrender even when faced with extinction. These were not wild creatures or unstable savages, as the Council had claimed. They were something far more dangerous, resilient, strategic, and deeply bonded by purpose. Velkor showed them a recovered Earth message, never broadcast publicly. It was a private video sent from one human general to another, captured by a spy drone during the war. The general, covered in dust and blood, spoke calmly. They will hit us hard. We will burn. But they don't understand we're not just fighting to live. We're fighting because they tried to erase what we are. And that they will never succeed in. The Council members who watched this began to realize the horror of what they had unleashed. They hadn't defeated Earth. They had created a new version of it, one that learned in silence, rebuilt in shadows, and waited with patience sharper than any blade. The most chilling revelation came next. Velkor revealed that the humans who vanished after Earth's destruction had not only survived, they had infiltrated Council systems, hidden for years under false names, and passed information back to their leaders. One such human had even worked inside the Council's strategic division, guiding key decisions and quietly moving the Council's fleets into positions where they were most vulnerable. Every strike the humans made had been based on perfect information. The Council had not just been attacked, they had been watched for years. This truth caused immediate panic. How could an empire that ruled the stars be so blind? Because they believed in their own lies. They believed humans were weak, chaotic, unable to rebuild. They believed Earth was gone forever. And that belief had become their doom. Then came the message that no one could ignore. A signal sent directly to the emergency line of the Council's high command. It wasn't hacked or forced, it came through smoothly, as if invited. On every screen appeared a human woman, standing in what looked like a war room. Her eyes were calm, her voice steady. She didn't shout or threaten. She simply spoke the truth. We were never your slaves. We were never your property. You tried to destroy our world, but you failed. Now you feel fear. And this is only the beginning. You will face what we faced. You will know what it means to be hunted. You will learn what it means to lose everything. You started this war, but we will end it on our terms. Then the message ended, but the silence it left behind was louder than any explosion. Across the galaxy, other species began to hear rumors that Earth was back, that the Council had lied, that the so-called savages had not only survived, but had grown powerful beyond belief. Resistance groups, long crushed by the Council's rule, started rising again, this time with hope. They whispered the name humanity like a storm coming through the stars. Old allies of the Council began to back away, scared that being too close might make them the next target. Planets that had once ignored Earth now reconsidered their place in the galactic order. If humans could come back from complete destruction, what else were they capable of? The Council tried to respond. They ordered all fleets to regroup, all planets to increase defenses. But their commands moved slowly. Systems were broken. Morale was worse. Many of their own officers began questioning their leaders. Why had they attacked Earth in the first place? Was it truly because humans were dangerous or because they were different? The truth was now impossible to hide. The war had not started because humans attacked. It started because the Council feared what humanity might become. And that fear had driven them to commit one of the greatest crimes in galactic history: genocide. But the humans had survived, adapted, and returned not with desperation, but with control. And now the Council had to live with the truth they created. Deep in the void, far from the eyes of the broken empire, the human fleet moved silently, preparing for the next phase. They had no intention of conquering planets or ruling over species. That was never their goal. They wanted justice, not dominance. But they would make sure the Council never forgot what they had done. Each step they took was calculated, designed not just to destroy, but to reveal the truth to the galaxy. To show every species what the Council truly was. Earth had been their victim, but now, Earth was their mirror, showing them the ugliness they tried to hide. I in the command chamber of the human flagship. General Liana stood before a glowing map of the galaxy. Lights marked every known Council base, fleet movement, and secret facility. She stared at them with a look of quiet fire. Around her, officers watched silently, waiting for the order. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The truth had already been revealed. Now came the reckoning. The once mighty Galactic Council now sat surrounded by the ashes of its pride, its influence shattered, and its power reduced to a memory. Their grand hall, once filled with confident voices and blinding lights of superiority, now echoed with silence and fear. Where ambassadors once boasted of domination, now sat trembling leaders, their eyes dark with hopelessness. Screens across the chamber glowed red, urgent warnings, failing systems, and a single incoming message blinking over and over again. The humans were close. Too close. The last attack had shut down their deep space array, left an entire battle fleet drifting, and wiped 3 strongholds from the star map in seconds. No retaliation had worked. No fleet had returned. No spy had made it back. What was left of the Council now understood the truth. Earth had become something they could neither predict nor control. The human forces moved like ghosts, struck like lightning, and disappeared before alarms could sound. But the most terrifying part wasn't their power, it was their patience. Humanity did not come with the fire of revenge alone. They came with cold precision, striking only where it hurt the most, revealing the darkest secrets of the Council to the galaxy as they advanced. Systems that once worshipped the Council now turned away in shame. Uprisings spread like wildfire. Old allies ran for cover. And the whispers grew louder in every corner of the galaxy. The Council was crumbling, and Earth was the one holding the hammer. In the middle of this storm, the Council made a decision it had never made before, not even in the face of natural disasters or rebellion. They decided to surrender, not out of strategy, but out of fear. They knew they couldn't survive another strike. The humans had shown them how easily they could take apart their defenses and how deeply they had understood the Council's weaknesses. So, for the first time in history, a direct transmission was prepared, not with commands or threats, but with a plea and open request to talk, to negotiate, to beg. Every word was chosen carefully, meant to show humility, even if it tasted bitter on their tongues. The message was sent on all frequencies to the leadership of Earth and the human resistance. We request a ceasefire. We admit our wrongdoings and seek peace. We offer full cooperation, access to our archives, and surrender of all military actions. Please, speak to us. We cannot continue like this. Then they waited. Seconds felt like hours. Every heartbeat sounded louder than the last. Even the air felt heavier. Would the humans respond, or would they strike next? Hours later, the council chamber lit up again. This time, it wasn't a warning. It was a reply. The message didn't come with dramatic music or a fleet flying overhead. It came quietly, like a shadow stepping into the light. On every screen appeared the same woman, General Liana, calm and composed, her uniform clean but worn by battle, her expression unreadable. She looked at the camera, at the council, at the entire galaxy, and began to speak. "You ask for mercy now," she said slowly, her voice steady and clear. "But where was your mercy when you burned our world? When you bombed our cities? When you told your people we were animals who didn't deserve to live?" Her words cut deeper than any blade. "You tried to erase us, and when we survived, you painted us as monsters. But we never came for blood. We came for justice." She stepped aside, revealing screens behind her images of destroyed human colonies, civilians turned to ash, children who never got to grow up. "These are the faces you tried to erase. These are the voices you silenced. And now you ask to be heard?" The council members looked away, some covering their faces, others frozen in shame. But General Liana continued, "Mercy is not given freely. It must be earned. We will not destroy what remains of your systems, not today. But we will not let you rule again. The council is finished. Your rule ends here. Every species you silenced, every voice you crushed, will now speak freely. You will disband. You will release your prisoners. You will reveal every hidden file about Earth and the war. You will face trial not by us, but by the ones you oppressed." There was no roar of applause, no threats, no dramatic declarations. Just silence. And then she spoke one final line. "You wanted us to be gone. But now it is you who will disappear from power." When the screens went dark, the council collapsed into chaos. Some wept openly, others shouted in denial, but deep down, they all knew it was over. The galaxy had changed. Earth had rewritten its place in history, not with brute force alone, but with truth, with survival, and with the cold, unforgettable weight of justice. Ships began arriving at council space, not to attack, but to claim freedom. One by one, species long suppressed stepped forward. Trials began. Truths came out. And the council's crimes, once hidden, became public. Those who had ordered Earth's destruction were no longer leaders, they were criminals. And the people of the galaxy watched as the council begged not only for mercy, but for forgiveness they would never receive. In the silence that followed, one fact remained unshaken. Humanity had risen not just from the ashes, but from the lies. They had endured, they had evolved, and they had shown the stars that they were not to be underestimated ever again. Earth had come back not as a victim, but as a force that would never be forgotten.